And Dulce Jubilo is one of these chorals of the Orgelbuchlein that when you listen to it, it's a very pleasant piece, and of course it's joy. God has sent his son to earth, and of course mankind is happy with that. And that's the expression of this piece. But if you listen to that, you hear obviously a canon. We had already a canon in the second piece of the Orgelbuchlein, but this one is a little bit the same. Melody, top voice, and the bass, the pedal, plays the canon, so follows the right hand. That's again, symbolically speaking, you could say the second voice follows, obeys the first voice, and so it just follows wherever the first voice goes. But it's not only that. The middle voices here for the first 25 bars are also a strict canon. And that's very remarkable because the motive that Bach is using doesn't give you the impression that it is a canon. So Bach starts here in the middle voice. We don't have yet any stops. You could say it's a descending line of notes, but while it is a descending line, obviously here starts the entrance of the second canon voice. So and a very complex piece also to play, but very joyful to listen because of this ongoing rhythmical and figures and also lines, melodic lines that go down, that goes across each other. So there's a lot of things that are happening here. We're going to talk about the piece in a second, but first about the stops that I chose. So also here, no indication by Bach which stops you should use, or you are completely free, in fact, if you stay within a certain agreement, a certain practice, so to say. But you can go many directions. What I did here in this piece, to just emphasize a little bit the joy, I used as a basic stop the Gedacht 8, added the quintadane for a kind of colors, like a fifth kind of note that you hear on top, and then the Rotflöte 4, but on top of that the 1 foot. These are the smallest pipes of the entire organ, the smallest of which are not bigger than this, with a foot like this. And so you get this sound. And this adds, of course, to the joy. In the pedal, Bach marks this piece, or writes this piece in the pedal very high, even with the high F sharp, which literally no organ in Germany had at the time, and even today very few organs would have that. But Bach writes on pitch height, which means he wants that pitch to sound in the pedal, so we have to play it 1 octave down with the clairon 4, and then we get this sound. But without the 8 foot here. And then we have another element, very, very, very nice, which is this repeated 8th note structure. By the way, they are written as just quarter notes, so we don't know really for sure whether Bach wanted to have this. So a kind of 3 against 2 structure, or just a triplet structure. And you might wonder why would Bach not have written exactly what he wanted, but in those times you had, of course, agreements and principles of notation, and oftentimes you see that in these structures, when you have a triplet structure with the first note alone, that is not written out. It's written out like in a kind of equal structure, like. I've chosen for the recording here to make it, to play these notes as a triplet for several reasons. Also at the end you have the 2 voices together, which makes it very hard to not do that. You have also other places where Bach actually marks the triplets, or the faster ones. But anyways, we don't really know in which version would be the correct one, what Bach had in mind. So both are possible. It's just, in this case, I find these triplets very joyful, and also because the middle voices are in canon, especially these notes that I play as a triplet, um, get a kind of anchor point, a recognition point. For instance, this A here, repeated A, that's like a musette that comes back like a lot of times, and it's very nice, the effect. So we go here, now it's here. Here. So you have these points of recognition, which is very pleasant, I guess, as a listener, that you say, okay, tom, pom, 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 tom, pom, 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 and that goes on the entire piece. We had another canon, so the second piece of the Orgelbuchlein, where in spite of the fact that you have there fewer notes, still I had the impression that that piece is just ongoing, like it doesn't stop, it doesn't breathe almost. You are happy as a listener that you arrive at the end, so the piece stops and then you can breathe. It's obviously what Bach wants. He wants that canon to just drag the listener through the piece, because that's the expression, a kind of expression of joy. Here you have a little bit the same, but in spite of the fact that you have more notes, faster notes also, you have really the impression that the piece was breathing a lot more. And the reason for that, part of the reason to that are the middle voices, and part of the middle voices being the reason for that are these repetitive structures. So the canon here in the middle voices, that's at least how I experience the piece, and in spite of the fact that it creates a very busy structure, gives the listener a lot of points of recognition, which creates like these little islands of rest within the piece. Very beautiful moments, for instance, here. And also that works very well with the triplet structure. Here, for instance, we come here. So this middle voice, tom, ta, tom. It's just beautiful. And then when the canon in the middle voices stops, it's a magical moment. Bach here goes almost in the direction of Beethoven, in the sense that he just goes suddenly to another key. That's kind of a weird chord to start at the first beat of the bar. And it's very unexpected. And what happens there is that the canon and middle voices stop, but we still have this descending pattern that started at the beginning. And by the way, if you speak about symbolism in Baroque music, we can find a term for all these figures. Of course, there was an entire lexicon in those days about Bach didn't invent all these figures. There was kind of notational conventions that there were, but it's not so important. These descending lines, of course, symbolize the fact that God sends His Son to earth. Or you could also say the angels come from heaven to announce the birth of Jesus Christ. And so that is the entire piece, is like these descending lines. And here, where we have this magical moment where we go suddenly to another key, there the canon stops, but you have an increase of this intensity of these descending lines. And of course, that announces the end, which is symbolizing Christ's birth. Left hand. The right hand follows. Here. And so continuously until the end, even the right hand is going to end with that and is going to participate. It's a signal from heaven to earth. It's unbelievable. You can choose to also like not slow down, but like hold back a little bit on the last or the one to last note. But there's nothing wrong with just playing through till the last chorus, and that gives a very special effect. It creates an effect that when you stop with the last chord, then the impression of the entire piece, of course, falls upon the listener. So, unbelievable piece. It's like all of these Orgelbüchlein chorals are just exceptionally well written, and in such short notice, just a few minutes of duration, you could write a book about the content of that. So very, nice music is just a platitude, but it sometimes with these pieces they are very short, and for that reason they go into programs or CD recordings like just in between all the pieces and all the other majestic pieces, but they are miniatures of beauty, all of them. And this one in particular is like, what can you say about it? The best thing is just to listen. Thank you for being part of the Orgelbüchlein project. This is more than music. It's a message of deep human emotions, from sorrow to joy, and a shared hope for a better future.
At the Confucius Foundation, we believe everyone deserves a peaceful home, and we think that music has the unique power to unite people in harmony. From the organ at St. Michael's Peace Church in Leuven, we bring this vision to life.
Through inclusive composition projects, regular concerts, and our annual Organ Marathon for Peace, we inspire connection and hope. One day, we dream of hundreds of organs worldwide joined together in a resounding call for peace.
Help us amplify this message by joining our Patreon community. Link in the description.